Okay, everybody comfortable? Cell phones off, right? Okay, here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the second of two All Things Considered episodes for the week.
The podcast where we ask you to consider a couple movies of our recommendation as opposed to offering you a classic for your consideration.
I'm your host, Mike.
And I'm Dustin.
And we want to give a shout out to everybody catching the show on YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and all great podcast providers. Also, if you're catching the show on iTunes, we'd really appreciate it if you gave us a rating and a review, because it helps with the podcast standings and just kind of gets it into the eyes and ears of potential listeners. So, appreciate that. If you've listened to the show before, welcome back. If this is your first time listening to the show, spoilers ahead. So we're here in the Thursday All Things Considered episode,
where we will be recommending to each other a couple of movies that we think the other might like and seeing what we think of that.
It's going to be an interesting episode, I think, because
there's some failure this week.
There was some surprises. But just before we get to discussing our two films, I just want to do a quick reminder. We talked about this on Monday's episode. We want to... Well, it's Thursday, so the week is almost up. You have until Sunday, so you'll have to get in by Sunday, the 1st of July, to get in on the contests. And essentially what the contest is to celebrate our 100 release episode a couple of weeks ago. We're doing a DVD/Blu-ray giveaway. So if you share one of the episodes on Twitter and you hashtag it FYC100, we will go through the list of everybody who's done it. We will choose a lucky winner. And Dustin, what will they get?
They will get a DVD or Blu-ray of their choosing for whatever the film they feel like getting, so long as it's not some sort of crazy gold-plated $1 million signed by the cast and crew sort of deal going on.
I don't think we'll ever beat the packaging we came up with on that Sherlock Holmes episode with like the Orson Welles body and then building it into the cabinet.
And we will then do a review on that same movie.
And if we've done the film already, we could just do a commentary or something for it, which is also cool.
That could work. Or a film of your choosing. Take your pick.
So get in on the fun. Hashtag FYC100. Share your favorite episode of the show on Twitter, whether it's for your consideration, all things considered, in case you were considering, sound considerations,
some other pun,
in conversation, whatever it happens to be. Share it, hashtag it, and win. That's all joy here. Nobody loses. Not like with the two films that we chose. So,
I like to think that I did better this week than you might have, though.
Dustin, what two movies did we choose to cover for this week?
We chose Peter Jackson's 2009 supernatural drama film The Lovely Bones and the 2011 All-Star Superman.
So we had a coin toss before we started recording to decide who gets to go first. Dustin, I believe... Who won? Did I win?
I go first is the end result of all
Okay.
that, basically. With Peter Jackson's The Lovely Bones.
He's cute. Does he like you as much as you like him?
Grandma, would you please just drop it? Hey, Mom! Look at me! Smile!
My name is Salmon, like the fish.
Okay, shipmate, take it away.
First name, Susie.
Bye, Dad.
Bye, Susie.
You are beautiful, Susie Salmon.
I was 14 years old when I was murdered
You're the salmon girl, right?
on December 6th, 1973.
We didn't find her, Mrs. Salmon. I'm very sorry.
Dad, she's dead, isn't she?
You miss her, don't you?
She's gone.
What if she isn't? What if she's still here?
Grandma, Susie's in the in-between.
I wasn't gone. I was alive in my own perfect world. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't perfect. My murderer still haunted me.
Gentlemen, Len.
Susie would never go off with a stranger. It had to be someone she knew. I've got a name for you.
This is police work. This is what we do.
My father had the pieces, but he couldn't make them fit.
You have a tomb in the middle of your house.
I waited for justice, but justice did not come.
You're a Salmon girl, right?
There's definitely something wrong with this guy.
Why won't you listen to him?
Because you need evidence. You need proof.
The thing that I liked when I first saw The Lovely Bones, even though I'd completely forgotten what movie it was, because I was going through all of Peter Jackson's films, as I do like him as a director.
If you listen to the show for any length of time, Dustin has mentioned Peter Jackson repeatedly. Even when we're not covering a Jackson episode.
I like his old splatter comedies. They are ridiculous. I like that it seems like he's having fun with a lot of these films, until The Hobbit, where it just becomes a job, I guess. But we all jump the shark eventually.
I don't think he had fun making those movies either. To be fair.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that he wasn't having fun with those films. He didn't want to do them in the first place, but that's neither here nor there. The Lovely Bones, what I liked about it when I saw it the first time around was how it felt very different to me. It's sort of a serial killer murder mystery from the perspective of the person being killed, but the important thing is more so how she's dealing with it, how her family's dealing with it over the next year or two. Seeing her crush move on to somebody else, seeing her family distraught and not moving on, and trying to influence them to keep hunting down the killer, while at the same time seeing how that's not actually helping Marky Mark in the slightest bit whatsoever.
Mark Wahlberg plays her dad.
And in the meantime, you've also got her sort of playing around with a guide in An Odd Afterlife, which is reminiscent of What Things May Come, which is another fantastic film, I think. And I liked just how sort of different it was. The focus was a bit all over the place, and I enjoyed that odd lack of focus. The fact that it went all over and didn't necessarily go where you'd expect it to. Mike, however, had some disagreements with that, for sure.
This is a movie I wanted to like. This is a movie I was confident I would like. I like Peter Jackson, and this was a departure from the Lord of the Rings stuff that he'd been doing, the King Kong stuff that he'd been doing. It's a little movie. Well, I thought it was going to be a little movie. It's actually not a little movie. Fran Walsh, who is Peter Jackson's partner, I believe she loved this book, and Peter decided to make the movie kind of for her, did he not?
I know that's the story behind Heavenly Creatures.
Oh, okay. I'm mistaking the two. Well, okay. See, I thought this was kind of a passion project, but maybe he just wanted to shake some cobwebs out or something and get some of the chainmail and orcs out of his life. I was sure that I would like it, and from the get-go, it doesn't feel like he adapted his style at all for the type of story that he was telling. I think he brought some of that big, epic, Tolkien-esque grandeur to the way he was shooting this small, intimate film. And it very much had... It was like... I kind of felt like Vincent Ward's What Dreams May Come was mashed up with Julie Taymor's Across the Universe, and somewhere in between that, sandwiched, is a little bit of David Fincher's Seven. And like, this has a great cast. Oh, and those three elements don't necessarily work in concert with each other. And I don't think they work well out of concert with each other. It's a little discordant. The cast is amazing. Mark Wahlberg is great. Rachel Weisz is great. Susan Sarandon is great. Saoirse Ronan is great. Rose McIver is great. Stanley Tucci is a great actor, but he plays the killer in this movie, and I don't know what the hell they were doing, but he's like this weird, hyperbolic, like comic book style serial killer. I mean, the makeup, the performance, like everything about it was just odd. Yeah, I just felt like all the elements didn't really mix well, and there's like that whole montage which is this phantasmagorical Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds like montage party that she has with her otherworld guide, who is also someone who's been like murdered and molested by this dude. They're like riding unicorns and on carousels and jumping around. This is how they're killing their time in the afterlife, I guess, while they're waiting for stuff to go on.
Well, the guide's also trying to get her to move on from all this, because she refuses to move on to the next life until he's caught, and she's like, dude, like, you can't keep doing this.
And that's part of the imbalance of the film, because you have Tucci's story, you have Wahlberg, Weiss, and MacIver, who are the family, you have their story, and you have Ronan's story, and they don't seem to blend. They seem to be operating on their own sort of levels, and I don't think they satisfactorily come together in the end. She can kind of communicate with them. The dad definitely has a sense of it, and what's she learning from this? She's hanging on, and she's causing more stress and pain for her family because she's technically not letting them move on. I like the messages in this movie. I like what this movie is trying to say. I just think Jackson, I think he lost his touch somewhere while making these big, big movies.
And the thing is, I actually like that discordant sort of tone. You have Stanley Tucci's story, which is tonally very different from the family story, but his life is going to be tonally different. He's not trying to move on. He's trying to hold on like a serial killer would to what's going on in his head. He's not involved so much during a chunk in the middle, but he comes back towards the end. You have the family who's trying to move on. The weird mother, the grandmother, comes in, tries to help the family move forward. They even have a little fun little musical number while she's trying to cheer everybody up. They're all trying to run very different lives, and it is discordant. Our lives don't nicely mash together.
But they don't spend enough time with each individual story to really make you feel the story.
I think you might have been distracted a little bit. I was feeling the story. I think the focus will always be on the afterlife story and what she sees of the others, and it's that sort of selfishness, that sort of that focus, which makes Tucci's and the family's stories seem a bit less complete, a bit more bouncing around. Whereas Susie, I felt hers was a lot more complete. It was a lot more focused with her, even though while she would be playing, a lot of time would just sort of pass by without her even noticing it, being sort of a afterlife being a bit wonky in terms of everything else, which I feel works, and you obviously disagree.
Yeah, like I feel like we got the abridged version of the film, you know, like Rachel Weisz's character leaves. She can't handle the obsessive nature of the father trying to hunt people down, trying to figure out who the killer is. I think his character was kind of extreme enough that you can kind of feel that, maybe also because, you know, I myself am a father. I can empathize with what he might be going through. But Rachel Weisz's character, she's sort of on the sidelines, and then she sort of leaves, and then she's in California working in an orchard, and she's sending postcards, and then she shows up again, which accentuates another thing that really bugged me about this movie.
And it is the worst thing in the movie. I'm not going to deny it.
The complete lack of urgency that characters will often have in this film. It occurs here. It also occurs near the end, and I think it occurs near the beginning as well. But Rose McIver's character, she's in Stanley Tucci's house. She finds evidence, finally proves, after a year, Stanley Tucci's character killed her sister. He finds her in the house. It's very dramatic. It's very tense. I hated the fact that Stanley Tucci would like stand there and like use his spider sense to find her. Like the creaking of the floor, and he just knows someone's there. Really bothered me. Anyways, Rose McIver gets out. There's a dramatic chase. He realizes the jig is up. He's getting his shit in his car. He's trying to get out of Dodge because he doesn't want to get caught. He knows this is it, which I actually enjoyed because I was like, he could have kept chasing her. He could have tried to bring her down. But no, he was like, what am I going to do? Catch her? Kill her? No, I'm just going to get in my car. I'm going to fuck off. She shows up at home to be like, hey, I found this scrapbook. I've got this scrapbook with my sister's hair in it and all the pictures and all the whatever. And she sees her mom has come back. And she just stops. She stops. She watches her mom and dad hug, and they're having a moment. And it's like I'm not going to bother them with this. They're having a good moment. And I almost screamed at the TV.
At the same time, you could say that how long has her mom been gone? She's been gone for half a year, let's say, that's going to stop you in your tracks a little bit. You're going to be surprised. There's a lot of stuff going on in your head. Could be just deer in the headlights for a little bit.
But how long has your sister gone?
A year.
Mysteriously. At least you knew who your mom was. She sent you postcards.
As I said, it is definitely the weakest part of the film.
He milked it for the emotion. He did. And it shows up later. I don't think I noticed it as prominently early on, although I feel like in the investigation it was probably there. But at the end, where the girl... There's another... See, there's just too much going on. Neither of us have read the novel, so we don't know how well fleshed out this stuff is in the novel, but there's this girl who, when Susie is like... Right after she dies and she shows up as a ghost, she runs past this girl, brushing her hand, giving her the ability to have this sort of ESP where she can kind of sense Susie.
Or she always had the ESP and it just happens to be this girl that she met up with.
Very possibly. And she ends up hanging out with the guy that Susie liked and who liked Susie, but she never got to have any moments with. And when they're rolling the safe with Susie's body in it, going to the sinkhole, she's realizing what's going on, and there's just this... Nothing happens.
The thing is, at this point, Susie sort of acknowledged that she has to move on. Like, it all doesn't matter anymore. So she's just trying to finish up the things that she wished she did in life. And one of the regrets she had that she mentioned at one point is that she died never having kissed anyone. So she's like, all right, temporary possession, gonna kiss this boy, then I'm good. Then I'm just gonna go to the afterlife. I'm out. Peace.
And that was another moment. He was weirdly cool with suddenly seeing Susie and giving her a smooch.
14-year-old boy, I might have been weirdly cool with it as well. And
Susie,
during this time,
you've been dead for a year.
You have the safe rolling into the sinkhole, and what you'd normally expect is the police to come rolling up or some quick, no, don't push that in there sort of deal. I like that, no, eventually just goes into the hole, and it's like, all right, got away with this shit, and he buggers off.
I like that.
I love that. That is fantastic. If I was to change one thing, though, especially around this point, later on it shows him trying to pick up his next victim, and there's sort of a supernatural drops an icicle which makes him slip and he dies. I would have done away with that. I would have had it just that he's out there, and that wasn't the point. That doesn't matter. But they gave him that little comeuppance. I don't know if that's in the book.
And we were reading on Wikipedia the reactions to this movie and saying that it was... People didn't seem to like the message of the movie, but they praised Peter Jackson's direction. They praised the visual effects. These are the things that bothered me. Like that icicle falling, the digital Stanley Tucci hitting the cliff as he rolls down into the snow.
Super digital.
Like, that was as bad as some of the worst orc effects in Lord of the Rings. The effects, I think, got in the way of this movie. I think this needed to be more of a Heavenly Creatures. And instead, it was Ready Player One. Yeah, as much as I like about this movie, there's more that I disliked.
I was hoping that the latter half would pick up so that it would be like all the other films I've recommended you, but maybe next time.
And then 13 minutes of credits.
Maybe next time. And on a side note, given that it is based on The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, I will do the good old plug for audibletrial.com/FYC show. And I don't know if this is on there, but if there is a book that you wanted to read or have read to you, snap one up for free and
let us know how they compare.
Do all the work for us. Or just let us know what you think of the film in the first place.
That's what a wonderful internet audience is for, though, isn't it?
Tell us that we're wrong. Where's that indignance? But speaking of didn't quite fare as well as we were hoping.
And indignance. So, okay. My pick for this week was the 2011 animated adaptation of Grant Morrison's All-Star Superman.
Superman's Journal. Final entry. I'm dying. My turn. My cells are breaking down. I'm running out of time.
Welcome to the new world. Lay down your weapons and you won't be hurt.
They only have one chance to save the world. My last adventure is about to begin.
You know what happens when you take on Lex Luthor? If I die, you die first! Did you ever think that it would end like this?
Chosen entirely out of spite.
I was talking to Dustin about Superman, and he said something about how Superman, there's no good Superman stories. He's powerful, he's too powerful. And I tried to think of, since we're going to be doing Richard Donner's Superman in December, I was like, what can I show him? What can we talk about on the show? And I had two to choose from. I chose All-Star Superman because the Grant Morrison run, the 12 issues of the comic book, are probably my singular favorite Superman story of all time. And I think that colored my memories of the film because the film disappointed the shit out of me. So
which is great for a recommendation.
So I regretted the recommendation right off the bat. There's some really great moments in it. Essentially, what the movie's about is Superman is dying. He has gone to save the first manned mission to the sun. He gets basically cancer. His cells are supercharged. The story in the comic books, before he dies, there are things he wants to achieve, and it's kind of like the 12 Labors of Hercules. It's very mythic, and there's things that he can do now because his powers have been supercharged, and he's trying to get all this stuff done until the end, where throughout the course of this you learn that Luthor is basically orchestrated this. He's jealous of Superman. He's trying to kill Superman before he gets the electric chair, and then he steals Superman's super serum, which he gave to Lois for her birthday, and then he's going to rule the world. And then there's a really cool thing with a gravity gun and everything kind of ends. And what Grant Morrison managed to do in the comic book was he's got such an interesting way of coming at these things sideways. Things that we see as just very typical superhero tropes. When they decided to title it All-Star Superman, he was thinking, how is that relevant? And he's like, well, I'm going to make Superman essentially like a star. All-Star Superman. He literally took the title, and he does that with the powers and the things, and he's got this love of old Silver Age Superman stories, the Mort Weisinger stuff. He brings it all in, and
there are so many references to old stories.
And there's so much cleverness that does not get adapted into the film. I think it's marginally enjoyable, but I figured it would probably end up making for a weird, discordant recommend when we get to actually talking about it, because I think Dustin felt mostly the same way. I don't think I proved to him that this was a worthy Superman story, because it isn't.
Right off the huff, I noticed that the voice acting was super weak. When he gets poisoned, he's like, oh crap, I'm gonna die. It's pretty much, oh, looks like death is coming. Yep, I suppose Superman's dying. That's a thing. Just nobody has any emotion or energy placed into anything except for Luthor. Luthor could throw some energy at stuff, and he always had... I felt that his voice acting was the best, whoever did him. Mike will know right off the top of his head, probably.
Anthony LaPaglia.
Good job, Anthony. But what it seems to me is that the whole thing... Yeah, you got your whole 12 labors going on. Everything, as far as I'm concerned, was building up to a moment with Lex Luthor. That moment being him having Superman's power and seeing things the way that Superman does, and coming out with this sort of pantheistic, we're all one thing, we're all one, we have to all be there for one another sort of deal, becomes super hippie at that point. And hey, I'm super hippie in that sense too. I think we're all one. I don't believe in a self, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing I talked about with Lucy when I saw that. That's sort of the message that I'm seeing there, except here it's condensed into 2 sentences that Lex Luthor says there towards the end. And once again, it's from having all this power and all this perception that you're able to see those connections, those causal links. And that is the most interesting thing about the film. And unfortunately, it's so little of it. But what I saw was we went and saw some of the bonus features with Grant Morrison talking about the comic itself. And his approach to everything was so very interesting. And honestly, I'd say don't watch All-Star Superman, watch the bonus with Grant Morrison and read the comic. Because it sounds like that has so much more going on. One of the things I loved, I'm going to cut you off right there.
As you should.
Was him talking about drawing Superman just relaxed. Because you got this guy who's invincible. Why would he be tense? Why would he care? So you have this constant image that they showed during that little documentary of Superman just lounging, slouching, with a shit-eating grin on his face. Yeah, like, that is an interesting take on him, and he makes Superman sound interesting, and that he has ideas for him that would be interesting that Mike is saying didn't quite make it into the film.
You pointed out that it was all building to this like singular moment at the end, which was a good moment. That third act, I love the third act of this movie. The animation is really good. The choreography is really good. The storyboard work that was done, I think it really was great. It was captivating to me. I love the voice acting. But the build-up in the comics, you have those 12 labors. You have those moments. Like, the whole point of the series was to remind you why Superman is the icon that he is. Why everybody loves Superman. This is why I recommended this to you, because this was supposed to be this proof, this
exemplary
essay,
media.
Essentially. Yeah, this visual essay on what makes Superman important and relevant and cool, and the kind of cool stories that you can tell with him. The movie doesn't distill that. The movie just picks a couple of episodes from the 12 issues, and they don't even blend well together.
It's just, here's suddenly some random new being that Superman goes out, does whatever, and it's, especially with the extra powers, my big complaint about Superman is usually that he can do anything, he just has to try hard enough, and that's not very interesting because you have no real tension, and that's what happens again, because he's got more powers this time. They just throw a bunch of guys at him, and he takes them all out with complete ease. Even when he's dying, I don't really feel the tension.
He does. I mean, he starts off super powered, and it does degrade. Like, by the time he gets to that ending, he's not as powerful as he was at the beginning of the film. But again, that's the failure of this adaptation, is that it's not about, look, I'm super powered, all the things I can do. It's about what makes Superman Superman.
I did like when he killed Nemesis, though, because Nemesis was going to enslave all of Earth to his will, and Superman would normally be like, no, I'm going to spare you, and we're going to try to be good about all this.
Oh, you're talking about the
Blue Star?
The Sun Eater thing, yeah.
But afterwards, Nemesis is weakened.
It was Rogue Sun. I think that's what he was. He was a Rogue Sun.
Yeah. It's a reference to an actual Rogue Sun theory that they have called Nemesis. Anywho, instead of sparing Nemesis and being like, all right, we'll fight each other 700 more times in the future as you keep trying to go to Earth and kill everyone, I don't have time for this, and he just flat out kills him because he's like, all right, I actually have to do this time.
To his credit, he does give him a chance.
Oh yeah, he does.
And then he sticks the Sun Eater on him, and then he kills the Sun Eater, and that's when Superman takes him down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that too. There are definitely moments in this movie, but yeah, read the book, kids. My memories of seeing this film, I think a year or two ago, I remember enjoying it, and I'm now thinking I might have been watching it with the commentary with Bruce Timm and Grant Morrison, so they might have been talking about stuff, and the images and the stuff might have seemed more interesting, and I didn't realize that the narrative doesn't really hold together. And, you know, nothing against Bruce Timm and Sam Liu and Dwayne McDuffie, who adapted it. I know that they adapted it a little bit more faithfully and had to take stuff out because of the runtime, but still.
Grant Morrison does have interesting things to say. If you rent the movie, watch the documentary. I'd say that's the interesting thing there.
And totally, like, if you have any interest in Superman, or you want proof positive that Superman can be part of an interesting story, All-Star Superman, 12 issues, Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, amazing stuff. But unfortunately, I regret recommending this.
Better luck next time, especially since normally you've been shooting 10 for 10 sort of deal.
I'm amused by the irony that I myself very much dislike my recommendation to you. And it was disappointing because I didn't like The Lovely Bones, and I thought, well, at least I'll like my movie. Nope. So this was just depressing for me overall. But what did you guys think?
Let us know if you've seen them and have any opinion on those.
Hit us up on our YouTube comment section. Hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have a blog, fycshow.wordpress.com. And like Dustin said midway through the show, if you want to help support us, you can hit up audibletrial.com/fycshow. Check out the audiobook for The Lovely Bones. Trial is 30 days, no commitment. Afterwards, you get to keep the book. We also have a Patreon account, patreon.com/fycshow. Another way to support us. Throw a couple bucks our way, help keep the lights on, and help us continue to grow and evolve the show, which hopefully you enjoy listening to, because we enjoy creating it.
And speaking of hitting us up, we have some shout-outs to do.
So shout out to Robert Lee Henderson Jr., who commented on Solo, and Rackin' Frackin', who commented on our Hard Day's Night episode.
And thank you to D. Angelini, talking about Brazil, as well as J. Sprite123, who commented on Airplane.
Thanks again to Kirsten I. Russell for commenting on our Jaws episode, and Goldie Murray, who commented on Starship Troopers. If you didn't catch the response we gave you there, we did talk about Roughnecks on the Traitor of Mars episode, ending our Starship Troopers month. So get our feelings about the animated series there.
And to Eliana Garden, I hope that I was able to explain afterwards what I meant by tech demo when talking about 2001. And to Rick Mills, talking about whether or not we're making these films up. You don't even want to see the films that we'd be wanting to make up. We got ideas and no money.
It was nice to see a couple comments from Daniel Crowley on our Martyrs and Rec Quarantine episode. And Justin Peterson, who doesn't often agree with our views on films. Thank you for still enjoying listening to the show and hearing what we have to say about it. And the film Irreversible.
And it's nice to hear that we're not the only people who enjoyed Irreversible, a.k.a. the comment by one doomed game critic. And it's nice to see that Hogwire, commenting on The Thing, enjoys the fact that we've got some Canadian content.
Dustin and myself being the Canadian content.
a.k.a. it's all Canadian content.
Got a comment from Mugface on Trainspotting, and Aloyxa Sinclair, I hope I pronounced her name right, talking about Airplane.
And I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. C.M. Howerton, 1998, on the final breakdown of Toy Story. And it would be neat to see if we could superimpose ourselves in some of these posters. Sean, who was commenting on American Graffiti, but there's the time and all that jazz involved in doing such things. And Mike already puts in so much work. Seriously, 99% of the work is Mike here. I'm just some asshole spreading bullshit.
And we can't name them all, but we want to thank everyone who is a new subscriber to the channel on YouTube and anybody who's just joining the program. We're so glad you've decided to check us out, subscribe, follow us. The channel's been growing. The people are finding us. People are noticing us. It's real gratifying. It's nice to know that. I mean, we'd probably be doing this regardless, but it's nice to be enjoyed.
It is always nice to get that attaboy. Sometimes that's all you want. A little bit of validation. Gives you the warm fuzzies.
And with that, we bring to a close our second of 2 episodes of All Things Considered this week of every month.
And now it's time to try and do better for our next recommendations, because this time was a bit of a gong show.
I have no comment.
Eventually I'll hit on a movie that Mike just adores. That week is not this week.
I just need to hit on a movie that I still adore after watching it again. And our next episode coming up on Monday.
Should be Ed Wood's classic masterpiece, Plan 9 from Outer Space, which is definitely not considered one of the worst films of all time. Thank you to whoever recommended it to the Sight and Sound list, because we got to be able to do these films as well.
That backfired with Hitman, though. As much as I'm glad that Zizek had that on there, Hitman was not a good movie.
But it does say something about just the critical world in general and these lists. And I feel that that's an important discussion. It's the reason we started this podcast. So thank you, Zizek.
And just before we're out of here, a quick reminder, share your favorite episode on Twitter, #FYC100, win a DVD or Blu-ray of your choice. We'll talk about the movie on the show. It's a party.
Or if nobody does, I guess I'll just save some money. Last chance, folks.
I'll just rent some porn.
The poor business is dying. It's only however many multi-billion-dollar it is.
So thanks again.
We'll do a porn parody. There you go. Don't make us review porn.
So thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate you checking us out each and every week. I have been your gracious host, Mike.
And I've been your less gracious host, Dustin.
We'll see you next time on For Your Consideration, or All Things Considered, depending on what you click on next.
Ta-ta.
Adios.
I cannot recognize any of your posters.